prayers of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says the adverse forces have no power when one loves the Divine. Be confident. The Lord is always with us and will save us. Welcome to all those who aspire. Welcome to all those who aspire to do the Lord's work. With always our love and blessings, says our Divine Mother.
The Eternal suffers in a human form. He has signed salvation's testament with his blood. He has opened the doors of his undying peace. How shall he cure the ills he never felt? He carries the suffering world in his own breast.
Sri Aurobindo's Savitri. Book 7, the Book of Yoga. Canto 1, the Joy of Union, the Ordeal of Foreknowledge, 468, new stanza. At first, to her, beneath the sapphire heavens, the Sylvian solitude was a gorgeous dream, an altar of the summer's splendor and fire, a sky-topped flower-hung palace of the gods, and all its scenes a smile on rapture's lips, and all its voices bards of happiness. There was a chanting in the casual wind. There was a glory in the least sunbeam. Night was a chrysoprase on velvet cloth, a nestling darkness or a moonlit deep. Day was a purple pageant and a hymn, a wave of the laughter of light from morn to eve. His absence was a dream of memory. His presence was the empire of a god, a fusing of the joys of earth and heaven, a tremulous blaze of nuptial rapture past, a rushing of two spirits to be one, a burning of two bodies in one flame. Opened were gates of unforgettable bliss. Two lives were locked within an earthly heaven, and fate and grief fled from that fiery hour. But soon now failed the summer's ardent breath, and throngs of blue black clouds crept through the sky, and rain fled sobbing through the dripping leaves, and storm became the forest's titan voice. Then, listening to the thunder's fatal crash and the fugitive patterns, footsteps of the showers, and the long, unsatisfied panting of the wind, and sorrow muttering in the sound-vexed night, the grief of all the world came nearer to her.
Dev तपस्विषु बीजममाव सर्वभूतानां विद्धि पार्थ सनातनम् बुद्धिर्बुद्धिमतामस्मि तेजस्तेजस्विनामहम् जयादित्यगतं तेजो जगद्भासयतेऽखिलम् यच्चन्द्रमसि यच्चाग्नौ तत्तेजो विद्धिमामकम् कामाविश्य च भूतानि धारयाम्यहमोजसा पुष्णामि चोषधि सर्वा सोमो भूत्वा रसात्मकः शरणं देवेश जगन्निवास शरणं अनन्तदयैकसिन्धु शरणं श्री अरविन्द शरणं मीरा शरणं मीरा
Words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo, taken from the collective works of our Lord Sri Aurobindo book Synthesis of Yoga Part 1, Chapter 23, topic The Conditions of Attainment to the Gnosis, page 488, first stanza. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, knowledge is the first principle of the Vijnana, but knowledge is not its only power. The truth consciousness, like every other plane, founds itself upon that particular principle, which is naturally the key of all its motions, but it is not limited by that. It contains all the other powers of existence. Only the character and working of these other powers is modified and molded into conformity with its own original and dominant law. Intelligence, life, body, will, consciousness, bliss are all luminous, awake, instinct with divine knowledge. This is indeed the process of Purusha Prakriti everywhere. It is the key moment of all the hierarchy and graded harmonies of manifested existence. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, in the mental being, mind, sense or intelligence is the original and dominant principle. The mental being in the mental world, where he is native in his central and determining nature, intelligence, he is a center of intelligence, a mass moment of intelligence, a receptive and radiating action of intelligence. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says in page 489, his lower delight of being translates itself into a sense of mental or vital or physical pleasure, and its perversion, pain, or feeling sensation of liking or disliking into an intelligence of delight. All phenomenon of intelligent mind sense. So too that which is above him and that which is around him and in which he lives. God, the universal being, the cosmic forces are non-existent and unreal to him until his mind awakes to them and gets not yet their true truth, but some idea observation, inference, imagination of things supersensuous, some mental sense of the infinite, some intelligence interpreting consciousness of the forces of the super self above and around him. And Lord Aurobindo says, all changes when we pass from mind to Gnosis. For there, a direct inherent knowledge is the central being. The Gnostic Vijnanamaya being is in its character a truth consciousness, a center and circumference of the truth vision of things, a massed moment or subtle knowledge of Gnosis. For in that all exists, and from that all originates on the Gnostic plane, is, first of all, a truth of unity, of oneness, but of unity originating, diversity, unity in multiplicity, still unity always, and indefeasible oneness. State of Gnosis, says our Lord, the condition of Vijnanamaya being is impossible without an ample and close self-identification of ourselves with all existence, and with all existence a universal pervasiveness, a universal comprehension or containing a certain all-in-allness. The Gnostic Purusha has normally the consciousness of itself as infinite, normally too the consciousness of containing the world in itself and exceeding it. It is not like the divided mental being normally bound to a consciousness that feels itself contained in the world and part of it. It follows that a deliverance from the limiting and impersoning ego is the first elementary step towards the being of the Gnosis. For as long as we live in the ego, it is idle to hope for this higher reality, this vast self-consciousness, this true self-knowledge. Our Lord Aurobindo says, the least reversion to ego thought, ego action, ego will brings back the consciousness tumbling out of such Gnostic truth as it has attained into the falsehood of the divided mind nature. A secure universality of the being is the very basis of this luminous higher consciousness. Abandoning all rigid separateness, but getting instead a certain transcendent overlook or independence, we have to feel ourselves one with all things and beings, to identify ourselves with them, to become aware of them as ourselves, to feel their beings as our own, to admit their consciousness as part of ours, to contact their energy as intimacy to our energy, to learn how to be oneself with all. That oneness, says our Lord, is not indeed all that is needed, but it is a first condition, and without it there is no Gnosis. This universality, says our Lord, is impossible to achieve in its completeness so long as we continue to feel ourselves as we now feel, a consciousness lodged in an individual mind, life, and body. There has to be a certain elevation of the Purusha out of the physical and even out of the mental into the Vijnanamaya body. No longer can the brain nor its corresponding mental lotus remain the center of our thinking, no longer the heart nor its corresponding lotus the originating center of our emotional and sensational being. The conscious center of our being, our thought, our will, our action, even the original force of our sensation and emotions rise out of the body and mind and take a free station above them. No longer have we the sensation of living in the body, but we are above it as its Lord, possessor or Ishvara, and at the same time encompass it with a wider consciousness rather than that of the imprisoned physical sense. Now we come to realize with a very living force of reality, normal and continuous, what the sages meant when they spoke of the soul carrying the body, or when they said that the soul is not in the body, but the body is in the soul. It is from above the body and not from the brain that we ideate and will. Let me repeat, it is from above the body and not from the brain that we shall ideate and will. The brain action will become only a response and movement of the physical machinery to the shock of the thought force and will force from above. All will be originated from above, from all that corresponds in Gnosis to our present mental activity take place. But this center and this action are free, not bound, not dependent on the physical machine, not clamped to a narrow ego sense. It is not involved in body. It is not shut up in a separated individuality, feeling out of clumsy contacts with the world outside or groping inward for its own deeper spirit. For in this great transformation, we begin to have a consciousness not shut up in a generating box but diffused freely and extending self existently everywhere. There is, or maybe a center, but it is a convenience for individual action, not rigid, not constitute or separative. The very nature of our conscious activities is henceforth universal. One with those of the universal being, it proceeds from universality to a supple and variable individualization. It has become the awareness of an infinite being who acts always universally, though with emphasis on an individual formation of its energies. But this emphasis is differential rather than separative. And this formation is no longer what we now consider or understand by individuality. There is no longer a petty, limited, constructed person shut up in the formula of his own mechanism. This state of consciousness, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo, is so abnormal to our present mode of being that to the rational man who does not possess it, it may seem impossible or even a state of alienation, but once possessed, it vindicates itself even to the mental intelligence by its greater calm, freedom, light, power, effectivity of will, variable truth of ideation and feeling. For this condition begins already on the higher levels of liberating mind and can therefore be partly sensed and understood by mind intelligence, but it rises to perfect self possession only when it leaves behind the mental levels, only in the supramental gnosis, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Prayers and Meditations, August 3rd, 1914. All the being this morning is mute adoration, and the immensity of thy love fills its soul. The preparation and the work and the preparation alternate and interpenetrate to such an extent that sometimes it becomes difficult to distinguish them, and their combination constitutes thy divine life upon earth. What one must be, what one must do, the perfecting of thy instrument and its utilization go together. Sometimes thou wantest it to enrich itself and grow, to open all its doors on infinite horizons, to unite with the God it can manifest, to develop its power of conscious relation with the various worlds, and sometimes thou wantest that, losing so to speak all consciousness of itself, it may be nothing but thy force in action. And in the two is found the supreme law of communion with thy will. All the being this morning is mute adoration, and the immense. The immensity of thy love fills its soul. 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 The immensity of